Hi, my name is Mandolin Royal, and today I'm going to be sorting out a pen of 12-week-old cockerels. But before I did that, I wanted to pull my 3 leading guys for this next breeding season and take a look at them again, because you can never look at your birds too frequently. The more you do it, the more familiar with them you get, and that way you can better see where you're at and pick a trajectory of where you hope to get to. So between all 3 of these guys, they're similar. I mean, they're white birds, roughly the same height. From this angle, there's not much different. But once we actually break into their details, that's where their similarities and differences really start to show. So I'm gonna let you know what they weigh. I do have them in order of size. The first guy up front here, he's 6 pounds 8 ounces. The guy in the middle is 6 pounds 12 ounces. And we have Mr. Tornado on the end. He's 7 pounds and 7 ounces. Tornado here on the end, if you've been following along with his little life story, he's now at 24 weeks old, and his growth has stabilized in the last several weeks. These other 2 are smaller than him by a bit, but they have some other features that I want, because it's not just about that growth rate when you're working with purebred birds. If they're purebred, they should be an accurate representation of what that breed's supposed to look like. This is a dual-purpose breed, so we're not going to ignore the growth rate. And so each of these guys have been picked as the best among their peers from what I hatched this past season. And it'll be up to the hens that I put with them to guide that next generation of results. The 12-week-old boys that I'm going to sort today, they're all at least a half-brother to Tornado. So I can look at him as sort of a basis point. These guys are cousins, half-siblings to the batch. And that's on the female side. They had a different father. So this first guy, he has the whitest earlobes of every single boy I hatched this season. We don't eat earlobes, but it's a breed trait. He also came up with a good width of body. Shape-wise, he's okay. The leg color is a little more pale than I want, and that's something that's been consistent. Consistently too pale. So the girls, I'm going to have to look at them close for that. His tail is still growing in. I saw a lot of feather casing still at the base of the feathers. So he'll need some more time to show that. Temperament-wise, he's very diligent. And he's kind of got that fight-or-flight attitude to where he only makes a face at me and acts like he might do something if he's cornered. And that's not a bad response, really, because out in a free-range environment, you want that boy that's going to stand up and fight and not go hide and fail to protect the females. So he's actually been pretty reasonable. He's got a brain. And he's not bad looking. But another thing I noticed consistently with all 3 of these is their chest depth. This is probably not the bird to point at. He's probably going to panic. He does have a good amount of vigor, so I'm just going to leave him to stay chill in here. But I like his legs and the structure of them. I like how they come straight down off his body, and there's a pretty good fist-sized width in between his legs. That's really important for the dressed result, because if they're too narrow under there, they're going to look like a skinny bird when you dress them out. This guy, I've been calling him Mr. Tail, because he has the fullest, widest spread, thickest tail. It's a little high in its angle, but it's that fullness that's been elusive to me He's got a little spattering of white in the earlobes. His comb has fewer points than the guy next door. But both of them have comb and wattles that are too large. That's too much. And again, there's the chest not really dropping in. I'm pretty confident it's not going to drop much in the next year. Maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe that's the slowest growing aspect of them. I don't know. They both feel great though. When I handle them, their keel lines are meaty all the way down. They're just daintier and smaller all the way around. And then we have Tornado here. He's still a mama's boy. And he's got that same shallow chest, but his extra weight is in his body length and his body width over these guys. He's just denser. He's got a lot more front width to his chest. And he's a very meaty bird. I like his smaller comb and wattle size. His tail is the thinnest of the three. I love his temperament. He could have turned out to be a nightmare since he was hand raised, essentially. But he's my token pet. And coincidentally, the fastest growing mature male of the entire season last season. So he's definitely gonna get a shot. And it's important to note that if I pick off 3 females from all of the girls, and I breed each of those 3 females to each of these 3 males, I'm going to get different results in every hatch. And that's the trick of it, is hatching yourself into a quantity to get enough results to find where the most positive traits rolled into the same birds. And those are the birds you can then select and use them for the following season and keep breeding for improvements and keep looking for variations that'll help you get there. So far, I've got Mr. Earlobes, I've got Mr. Tail, and I've got Mr. Monster. And then they'll get set up with a couple different females, and we'll start test hatching to see what kind of results we get. And with them each feeling meaty, even though these 2 guys are smaller, that's alright. They'd still dress out 4 pounds, a little over 4 pounds. And that's a meal for 2 people. More if you stretch it out with some good side items, or shred the meat down, mix it with some rice, roll it into a burrito. Add your favorite cheese, add your favorite sauce. Off you go. So now that I've looked at where they're lacking, and it's that chest, it's probably going to take me quite a while to inch my way forward on chest depth while also looking at everything else. But now I know things to look for in this next group of birds. So I'm going to go ahead and put these guys back and then get through the kids. See which ones are going to get a special finishing and which ones are going to get fed their regular feed as a potential breeder bird later on down the line. With them being at 12 weeks, I can do a 4-week finish, still do our 16-week processing goal. For the sake of pen space, I like to do that as soon as I can while still getting a nicely dressed out bird. So let me go ahead and get organized, then we'll get into these other birds. Alright, so I've sorted out the 12-week-old boys. I organized them by weight and their details. But I want to preface this by saying these were the ones I had already sorted out that I didn't particularly care for, so they were just left to grow in a bachelor gang. But inside of these other 2 pens that I have covered in plastic for the cold weather, it helps retain more heat. There's 5 boys total in with these pullets that had already established themselves as the faster growers. I haven't weighed them today. I'll do that at a later date. But these 2 came up at the heaviest among their peers. They also came up more correct than some of them. So I'm gonna do an evaluation from above on those 2. I'm not gonna waste your time by doing every single one. But I want to show you the weights and some notes I took. In position 1, we've got 4 pounds, 10 ounces. He had pale legs, 2 inner toes were bent, and there was a bend in the comb where it was kind of going like that on the back blade. That's not going to mature well. 4 pounds, 13 ounces. New this year, I've never seen it in this flock before, is an inverted comb. So I'll have to do some digging into where that came from and get that called out of whoever's throwing it. 4 pounds, 10 ounces. Really long. Legs are too pale. 4 pounds, 12 ounces. Another inverted comb. 1 bent toe. And the wing feathers were shorter than anyone else's. That was weird. 5 pounds, 4 ounces. Pale in the leg. 5 pounds, 5 ounces. The inner toes were bent. 5 pounds, 5 ounces. Stood knock-kneed. It never corrected itself, and I watched him move around. So that guy's out. So these guys up here on this list, we're going to do a special finishing on these 4. And we're not going to do a special finishing on these 3. And that's so that on processing day, we can see what's different between a little more care put into that finishing and then just keeping them on their regular feed for the duration. So that'll be neat. I haven't done that side-by-side comparison yet. But these other 2, 5 pounds, 6 ounces, his legs were a little bit pale, but there was nothing else wrong that stood out. And the big guy at 5 pounds, 14 ounces, I was hard-pressed to find anything wrong with him at this point. That may change in time, and this smaller guy might come up more correct. I don't know. They're going to get more time to grow from these 2. So that gives me 7 total boys to keep growing. And these guys are going to go in the freezer. Let me go ahead and get set up so that we can look closer at these 2. Figure out why they're worth feeding some more. And why they're worth growing for a longer period. So this is our biggest guy out of that whole 12-week-old group who came out of general population at 5 pounds, 14 ounces. Now I want to hang on to him and the next biggest one because I think this one's going to develop yellowing. It's sort of there, and I don't think it's just dirt. This time of year when we get the warmer temperatures, you already know we're buried in mud. And the birds are going to be dirty birds. But even if this guy had a little bit of yellowing coming in, it'll be in the saddle feathers here, the top of the shoulder in here, and maybe in the hackle up here. What he has for table qualities is valuable to the breeding effort. So you don't want to let little aesthetic details affect your judgment too bad when the entire flock purpose is keeping a good batch of birds going for the table traits. So for utility, this bird's got it. Let me see if I can get him positioned. I know, this is new to you. So he has a lot of width. If I put a hand on either thigh, my thumbs cannot touch. The closer your thumbs are, when you've got them by the thighs with your other fingers, you want to see distance in there for that width of body. From there, all the way across. Another important measurement that you're feeling for is the length from the base of their neck all the way down to their tail. And you can get a hold of the tail and find where it ties in. You can find where that little oil gland is in there. And you can base your measurement off of what's left for the back length. For 12 weeks old, this is a pretty dang big bird. What was it, like 20 ounces bigger than his peers? But I'm going to try to flip this bird over on his back and show you his filthy underbelly, since he's been sitting in dirt along with the rest of them. But to see the fleshing. Because what you're looking for, like, think of what they feel like when you're handling them processed, raw, and without their feathers. What you feel there, you can also see, but when they're covered in feathers, you can feel it, but you can't see it. Now hold on, this will only be uncomfortable for a second. You're alright. You're alright. I know. It's weird. It's weird. But you're alright. So now we have him calm again. This is similar to what they do when they're doing an NPIP test, because they draw blood from a vein in the wing up here. Once they're on their back, they're pretty chill. But his keel bone starts right there and it ends right there. And that's an important measurement, because what you see on a dressed bird is all of this breast meat here coming down the keel. This is the fist wide measurement in between the leg. Here's his thigh. Here's his thigh. The other important measurement is the distance from the end of the keel up towards the pelvic bones. We'll go ahead and let him stand back up again. You don't want to leave them like that too long, because it does put pressure on their lungs. And I want to make sure this is not a totally terrible experience for him, so that we can handle him in the future. So right there's his tail. Underneath and to either side, there's going to be 2 pelvic bones. Turn your butt up. Those are right here. My 2 fingers fit in between those pelvic bones with a little extra to spare. The distance from the end of the keel up to those pelvic bones, that's at 3 fingers. And that matters for productive laying in the pullets, aka his future daughters. But also when you're processing, that's your workspace of being able to get inside. So even though this guy might turn a little yellow on us in time, he's got dual purpose written all over him. And that's why he's going to get more time to grow, more time to get out of this awkward, wonky, gawky teenager phase. Because between that 12-week and 14-week point, that's about their ugliest time. When they can be pretty funny looking. And you gotta let them grow past that, but you can start looking at them for growth rate, body structure, how much they weigh, where they seem to be fleshing in. This guy's got all of his meat down in the breast. There's a little bit in the thigh, but it's not much different than the thighs of his peers. Those are actually pretty similar through each one. But this guy's chest, it's still shallow, which is what I'm seeing throughout the flock. But maybe with the substance there, it'll drop in lower. I don't know. We're gonna let him grow and find out. But I'm gonna clean out the pen that they came from. I'm gonna get the guys in there who are going to be on the regular feed. And I'm going to put a leg band on this one and the other guy so that they can go back with their peers, but we know who they are. And the other ones I'm going to get set up into finishing crates. And we're going to give them 4 weeks of fattening so we can see the differences there. Either which way, it'll be mighty good eating. Just from some boys we hatched, grew out, sorted out for merits. We'll figure out who's freezer bound and who's gonna stick around. So far I like the temperament on this one too. He's just kind of rolling with it. I'll do another video of our finishing methodology and let you know the recipe we're using and what the consistency should look like. Some more on this later. Feel free to like and subscribe.